Welcome back to Dylan's Little Hobbies. And in today's video, I am going to be announcing my new big projects for the year 2020. Now, I've never done any type of project like this, and in my next video, of course, I will actually be releasing the projects to you guys. But in today's video, I want to go over the history going into my little project here, and we'll talk about what the project is in this video eventually as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just get into it. So, Star Wars. You want to know something funny about Star Wars? Fact is, when I was a little kid, I was a snot-nosed brat, and I thought anything my dad was into was gonna be lame. I was one of those snot-nosed brats that thought, oh, I only like the new stuff. I didn't know anything about truly good stories or anything like that. And it's funny, my little sister actually was the little daddy's girl, and she watched Star Wars again and again and again, and eventually one day I came out and I saw Darth Vader, and I was like, I had to know more. That's how I got into Star Wars, is because of Darth Vader. While Darth Vader was totally 100% intimidating to at least a little kid like I was, he was also really, really interesting, and I had to know more. And of course, that's how I got into the original Star Wars. And then the prequels. You know, a lot of people give hate to the prequels, but I see the problems with them. But what I love about Star Wars the most, what I took from Star Wars the most, is I took stories. I love stories, and it's because of Star Wars that I love stories so much. And it's really funny. Eventually, I learned how to read, and I love reading stories. Now, of course, here's the thing about that. I have to actually be interested in it to read it. Like, when it comes to history or language arts or something like that, if I wasn't interested in it, I wasn't, I could barely remember it. That's why I was so terrible on history tests and stuff like that in school. But I love stories. I love reading stories, and eventually I got into anime and, of course, manga like Naruto. And it all just goes back to Star Wars. I love stories because of Star Wars. Now, eventually, I also learned how to write. Obviously, you learn how to read and write together, right? So, I eventually got the idea of writing my own stories, writing my own things. And you know, a lot of people who meet me, they would never know that I've ever was into this. But when I was little, both me and my sister's actually a little better than me. I have to admit that. But I used to write little tiny stories for me and my friends and my family, and I got a lot of really good feedback from my family. My family has always been very supportive of me. Especially my dad, so I have to thank my dad for that the most. And what was interesting is that eventually I started writing actual chapters, actual books, and by that I mean the chapters were maybe a page long, if that. Eventually, as I got older, I was able to write longer chapters, but I've never written a chapter that was longer than maybe 2 or 3 pages long, which that isn't bad. A short story, even if it was 20 chapters long, what's that, 20 pages long? That's not really a long story at all. I mean, it sounds like it is, but it's really not. And it's just really funny because I got such great support from my family. My dad, I remember one time he said, you know what, this is a really great story. I have a friend who's a publisher. If you finish this story, we can get it published. And of course, at the time, I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. Then I could become famous. Even, you know, I'm a little kid at this time. I'm like maybe 10, 12 years old. And it's just funny. when I used to write the little tiny stories, just me and my family, that's what I did. I used to finish them. But as I was writing the chapter books and as I was starting to get closer and closer to finishing it, I was somewhat kind of scared of actually publishing it. You know, it's one thing to give it to your friends and family just to make a story to make them smile, make them laugh, make them happy. But it's a total another idea to actually make a story to publish, to make a story for people to see. And people judge things. They judge things a lot. So one thing I was kind of scared of, okay, if I finish this and I give it to my dad, he really likes it, he publishes it, I become famous, but what if no one likes it? What if I become famous for a story that no one liked? I really hated that idea. And it's funny because I wrote a story, I wrote at least one story ever since I was maybe 9 years old. I wrote books. I wrote chapter books, maybe only 10, 20 pages long. Again, each chapter was maybe a page long. I've never written more than maybe 2 pages long of a chapter. But the idea of publishing that really, really scared me. And that's why I never did it. I never finished any of my stories. And it's funny, when it comes to my stories, the first thing I think about is okay, what would be a really good ending? I might come up with a small beginning, but then I think, okay, what could be a really good ending? And then I write some notes down, and then I come up with the beginning, middle, but usually the ending is what I come up with first. So here I am. I'm on like the last chapter. All I have to do is write this last chapter. I know what the ending of the story is going to be. Here I am writing it, and then I think, but then this is going to get published. I can't finish it. And so I never finished any of the stories. I wrote tons of stories, and I never finished any of my stories. Even through high school, I was like that. I would make stories, I would share them with my teachers, with my friends, and they would give me great feedback as well. I just never wanted to publish it. Now, then things changed after high school, as everything does for everyone. I stopped writing because I had other things to do, obviously. And then eventually I was inspired by a couple of YouTubers that I really liked to make a YouTube channel. Now this YouTube channel, okay, so it's gone nowhere. I'm fine by that. Hey, I do have subscribers, and as long as I can make one person happy, just like with my stories back then, as long as I can entertain one person with my videos, then I'm happy. But here's the funny thing. Last year, and it all goes back to Star Wars. Last year, Star Wars Episode 9 was coming out, and after the trash fire that was Episode 8, look, a lot of people liked Episode 8, a lot of people didn't. I'm one of those in between. I liked it, but at the same time, there were so many problems with it that I despise it as well. It's definitely not a very good Star Wars film. That's Episode 8. But Episode 9, there was some news coming out, but I saw no hype for Episode 9. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to take my channel, do something positive, and I wanted to build up hype for Episode 9, so I wanted to share my thoughts. Now, I've done videos like this before, sharing my thoughts and ideas for Star Wars content, but I've never done what I did last year. I literally took my ideas, made a poorly written, rushed, fan-made script, It was a joke, it was for fun, it was just to give people my ideas and hopefully build up hype for what episode 9 could be. I made that video, my fan made scripts. Go ahead and watch it if you guys want to. With that said, it's poorly written dialogue, it's very, very cringy, it was rushed, it was just for fun, it was a joke, but even with that, even knowing that, I got a lot of really good feedback from it. I got a lot of people actually liking that. Okay, maybe only 6, 7, 8 people really liked it, but that's a lot of great feedback from strangers I've never met. And that has encouraged me to do something I have never done before. Ever since Rogue One came out, I have had an idea for a movie. Now, I didn't know what to think of Rogue One going into it, but afterwards, I fell in love with the idea of Disney making actual Star Wars stories that wasn't just combined with the Skywalker saga, but actual Star Wars stories just in the universe of Star Wars. I fell in love with that idea after Rogue One, and so I had tons of ideas for movies. And then, of course, Solo came out, and those movies were canceled. But then, of course, we got to The Mandalorian, and now I've thought my ideas could be a great TV series, or just a great book series. And then I kind of thought, you know what? After all this great feedback, what would happen if I actually sat down and wrote my story? What do you think would happen? Would people hate it? Would people love it? I simply don't know, but I've decided to take the chance. I have written down my story, or at least part 1. There's going to be, because of the way YouTube works and everything, I have decided to make my 1-part story into 4 different parts. This is going to be the longest story I've ever written. I'm not a professional writer, but this is going to be a really challenging thing for me. It's going to be interesting. And so, now what I would like to do is I would like to tell you guys about my new project. My new project is I wrote a book. Now, it's a Star Wars book, which means I can't officially publish it because of course, Star Wars is copyrighted. But I can slap fan-made on it and put it out there for you guys. So I decided to write my book, put on fan-made on it, make sure no one thinks this is official Star Wars. It's written by me, it's written by fan, it's fan-made. It's going to be my fan-made story. And you know what, it's funny, I originally wanted to call it Star Wars The Rising, but after Rise of Skywalker, I decided a better name for it would be Star Wars The Rise. So, without further ado, I introduce to you Star Wars The Rise. What is this story about? The story is about, basically, it's about a Sith who will inevitably end up changing the entire galaxy. It takes place about 9,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. And I think it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really, really different. And I hope you guys really like it. So without further ado, here is just a small clip of my story. I'm going to, of course, audiobook it, but I'm not an official writer. I write like I speak. I'm not an official reader or audiobooker, audiobook recorder, whatever you want to call it. I am going to record myself speaking like an audiobook, but the fact is, feel free to go ahead and mute me and read it for yourselves. With that said, here is a clip of The Rise. King Inca the Hutt,
I have returned, your highness. The big slimy slug-like creature turns in surprise. He speaks in his language. Then a translator droid by his right side says, King Inga, surprised to see you soon. Soon. You only just left 2 days ago. You do not disappoint.
Okay, so it's just a fan-made book, and I put some pictures in there of what I believe these characters would end up looking like. Like the main character, I think would kind of look like Aizawa from My Hero Academia, stuff like that. Um, and I mean, this is just a storybook idea that I had, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I will be coming out with at least 2 chapters every month of this, and there's going to be 4 parts, 10 chapters in each part, 40 chapters long. I hope you guys are excited for that. Thank you guys for watching, and I am out. Bye.